This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
But speaking of social gatherings, I think we have one in this chapter of wives, shall we call it?
It's the wedding of the wives. It's when all the different relationships coalesce into the quartet that we talk about. Mm-hmm. This is that chapter. And
it's, in a lot of ways, I kind of wish that Rand, Matt, and Perrin had a get-together the same way that Elaine, Avienda, and Min do. Like, I really do feel like we never get to see that. But here, the interaction between the three of them is actually just fun.
I think there's a lot of really fun, comedic, and also meaningful writing in this chapter, in the conversations between the characters. It's a really good chapter for that. I'm looking forward to it, even though, like I said, past me is a douchebag for scheduling this. I am looking forward to covering this chapter. This is a fun and well-written chapter, in my opinion, even though I have strong opinions about some of RJ's choices.
Well, yes. One of the things that I think about when I read a chapter like this is I wonder how much of this sort of grouping of three women with Rand has a lot rooted in mythology and the idea of the three women as one, and, you know,
the Maiden, Mother,
and Crone. Yes, that whole trilogy, the Fates, all that sorts of things, the three women around the fire. Like, that's such a common thing in mythology, and to give your hero these sort of mystical three around him, one who actually does see things, the other two who have, like, direct connections to the One Power.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of obvious imagery with Avienda, the Maiden, and Elaine, the Mother, and Min as the Oracle, which that power is generally reserved for, like, the crone person in a pantheon. Yeah, I'd agree that there's a lot of triplets of women that should circle important plot points in cosmological, like, reasoning. So, yeah, I'd say Jordan was not avoiding that.
Yeah.
I think Jordan was very heavily leaning into that. Exactly.
So, and then sometimes when I view these kind of chapters through that sort of lens, I'm like, okay, that's why he's forcing these groups together, even when realistically they might, like, fracture and come apart a little more easily.
Yeah, there's some very weird fantasy relationship choices made, but it does work if you're trying to tell how these mythologies can go together and make sense. Like, the gods make weird decisions compared to mortal men sometimes. That's not unheard of in mythology.
So yeah, this is chapter 12, A Lily in Winter, and our symbol is the dragon. The dragon for Rand, and the lily in the winter because, well, that's the symbol of I believe it's Elaine's personal sigil.
It's Elaine's personal seal, and he leaves her a beautiful lily on her pillow when he leaves the next day, and she puts a keeping around it. So, like, the lily in winter, because it's cold when she wakes up, and there's a lily on her pillow. So the lily in winter is like, there's just no end to what it means, basically, in this chapter.
Isn't that also a callback to the feathers he pulled out of a pillow that he tried to turn into a feather and give to her and failed last time?
Into a flower,
yeah. And now he's able to create that flower, and the feathers were the most treasured thing she owned before the lily.
Yeah, it's definitely a callback to that gesture that he made for her before. He's better now. He's better at channeling. He's in a more committed relationship with her. Like, the whole thing has escalated, and he is now able to make a perfectly dewdrop encrusted lily in the middle of winter.
And yet his work is driving him crazy.
True.
Do you want to read us in on this one?
Yeah, it's kind of a long read, I think, to get the full scope of the chapter. But like I said, I think this is a well-written chapter overall. So
yeah, this is a thick one, and there's a lot of important events happening here, and a lot of important relationship evolving stuff. I have lots that I want to talk about, so I think it's worth a long read in.
Another serving man nearly fell on his nose, bowing, and Elaine sighed as she glided past along the palace corridor. At least, she tried to glide. The daughter heir of Andor, stately and serene. She wanted to run, though her dark blue skirts probably would have tripped her had she tried. She could almost feel the stout man's goggling eyes following her, and her companions. A minor irritant, and one that would pass. A grain of sand in her slipper. Rand bloody thinks he knows best for everybody. Althor is a joke down my back, she thought. If he managed to get away from her this time... Just remember, she said firmly, he hears nothing about spies or Forkroot or any of that. The very last thing she needed was him deciding to rescue her. Men did that sort of nonsense. Nynaeve called it thinking with the hair on their chests. Light, he would probably try to move the Aiel and the Saldaeans back into the city, into the palace itself. Bitter as it was to admit, she could not stop him if he did, not short of open war, and even that might not be enough. I don't tell him things he doesn't need to know, Min said, frowning at a lanky, wide-eyed serving woman whose curtsy nearly collapsed into a sprawl on the red-brown floor tiles. Eyeing Min sideways, Elaine remembered her own time wearing breeches and wondered whether she might not try again. They were certainly freer than skirts. Not the heeled boots, though, she decided judiciously. They made Min almost as tall as Aviendha, but even Brigida swayed in those, and with Min's snug breeches and a coat that barely covered her hips, it looked positively scandalous. I'll cut it there, even though this whole chapter deserves to be read.
Yeah, there's a lot in here. It's hard to even know where to begin, right? Like, there's just...
Yeah.
I mean, do we want to talk about the clothes and the heeled boots and the wide skirts and just sort of that envy that she has of Min? That she's obviously maybe envious of something else, not necessarily the breeches. The fact that she's been hanging out with Rand for how many months?
Oh, yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She is happily jealous about that. Not jealous in the tear Min down way, but she's jealous of a lot of what Min has. It's freer to wear pants, and it's more fun to be with Rand than to be struggling to win your throne. Well, fun might not be the right word, but sometimes.
Sometimes.
There's, a lot to get into that. Yeah, so we have our party walking down the hallway in all of their various attires, and they start really interacting and giving us some really funny character building moments. I mean, Aviendha and Min is just sort of a running physical comedy gag throughout the chapter, the way that they keep imitating each other and thinking alike and having the same responses reflexively to things. And it starts here.
Right.
With the, you lie to him? Well, no, except when he needs to be lied to, and that's fine, and we all know because women's codes or whatever.
When Avian is like nodding along, yeah, that's right. Sometimes he does need to be lied to, but I mean, I would never do that. But sometimes he needs to be lied to. Yeah, no,
yeah.
And then just the constantly pulling out knives at any threat, and the similar sort of willingness to kill for the sake of the person they love. Like there's that. It's Jordan is dropping those little bits all throughout this chapter.
Yes, Rand has a type.
Yes.
There's 3 different women are meeting the criteria, but he has a type.
Well, and it's also, he loves to prove his characters wrong, because they're sitting there thinking, we have nothing alike in common. What are we ever going to bond about? Like, I don't know this woman at all. And meanwhile, they're like exactly the same person. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Elaine is very worried that they won't like each other because everything has to go right, and it all has to happen right now. And she's a peacemaker, so she can't not think about the diplomatic implications of all this knife twirling. But what's really making the party catch the eyes of all the servants is not the 4 of them, but the guards.
Right. So that's why the guy's dropping glasses and everything, is because she's got this new set of guards that are essentially Amazonian warrior women, right? Like...
the archetype of.
Right, yeah. Like, Brigida was having breastplates made to fit women, which Elaine suspected had certainly made the palace armor's eyes pop. So, I mean, that's that, like, ridiculous, oversized, I have to assume, boob armor that
he's definitely saying boob armor, which is, like, so impractical and so historically anachronistic, and there's so many videos online of actual cosplayer armorer historians being like head desk about boob armor. Like, my God, this is not a thing. But of course Jordan's making it a thing. I mean, at this point he has to have seen some of the international covers for his books with like if you know, you know.
But again, that's why I come back to legends fading to myth. The myth of these Amazonians and these bronze booby armor is something that was prevalent in the time. And he's saying this is where it came from. right?
Even though the palace armorers would never be asked for this because Brigida would actually talk to soldiers. And like, no, this would never be a thing.
I know.
People were built different in the Third Age.
There was genetic differences. Yeah.
I do like overall the look of them with the big fancy hats and the sashes and just the gold tooling. I mean, these are some incredibly flamboyant palace guard strangeness peacock things walking around, and I love the absurdity of it.
No, and they're designed to look absurd so that no one takes them seriously, so they get taken down, right? Like, because these are actually competent warriors, competent fighters. These are the best of the best that they've been able to find.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're supposed to look ridiculous. And so in that regard, maybe they do have boob armor because
it's ridiculous.
So fucking ridiculous. Any experienced assassin is going to not take them seriously because who the fuck wears boob armor?
Right.
Like, yeah. So who knows? I mean...
and then I like this little bit where she finally asks how to mask the bond from somebody who knows. And it's like, oh yeah, they are not being taken seriously as sisters by some of the other sisters, so they haven't been taught everything that is common knowledge among older sisters. But also, it's how quickly it happened, right? Like, 2 years at the most, right? From joining the White Tower to becoming Aes Sedai. Like, these are brand new. You can't teach everybody everything in 2 years.
Right, you could easily pick up through osmosis the fact that Aes Sedai can mask their bonds with their warders. That doesn't have to be an Aes Sedai specific lesson. It's just part of the overarching culture of Aes Sedai and warders. It's like, well, yeah, obviously some of them like to, like, obviously that. But yeah, when you spend half of your 2 years in the tower running around on dangerous exchange programs, you're going to miss some of the little things in the culture.
And a lot of Aes Sedai don't bond warders for many years, right? So even the newest Greens don't necessarily have a warder. They have to find somebody and pick somebody. They're not encouraged to do that quickly. So, the assumption is they're going to have years to find out about these things in conversations with other Aes Sedai. And there's no training program for that. That's just like, tribal knowledge. Oh my God. It's a work term. I can't believe it's invading my, actual language because I don't like that term. Institutional knowledge. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, chat. Yeah, it's the way that information gets transmitted is a big part of what Jordan finds fascinating. This is just a microcosm of that, I suppose. But yeah, Aes Sedai are supposed to treat warders with and the warder bond with a lot of reverence. And yeah, you're going to learn everything you can about it before you kind of get the go-ahead from your Aes Sedai superiors that like, okay, I think you're ready. You've proven in casual conversation that we won't need to take your warder away from you. Like that kind of thing. Right. And yeah, Elaine skipped even knowing that was a rite of passage, much less doing it.
And it was to save Brigida's life.
Yeah, but she learned it because she knew she was going to be using it illicitly. She's like, I'm going to use this at a time and place that other Aes Sedai would not approve of. Therefore, I need to steal the knowledge like Prometheus stealing fire from the gods.
Because she always intended to bond Rand.
At the first possible opportunity.
Yeah.
Always. Like day one of arriving in the tower. She's like, oh, that's how I can get the pretty boy. Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of the pretty boy who's wearing a ugly ass mask of mirrors, or well, not right now, but he will be soon.
Yeah.
And I love the whole like little counterpoint that the guards think she's meeting this lover, and then they see Rand, and she is, which is so they're totally accurate, right? Like, and then they like see Rand in his mask of mirrors, and they think, oh my God, he's hideous. She can't actually be sleeping with that guy, can she? Right? Like,
and like meanwhile, their commander is destined to always fall in love with a particularly ugly man.
That's a good point.
Not that they know that, but like layers. Okay, so we have now hit one of the lines that I have opinions about.
Okay.
When Elaine is thinking about Rand on the other side of the door, oh my God, and wondered whether she was like some fool woman in a story who threw her head over the wall because of a man. She had always thought these stories must have been written by men. And now it's real for her. And so clearly and I'm just like, Jordan's like trying to break the fourth wall and claim that he gets what's going on. But like, I find the princess romance, love at first sight arc with Elaine so hard to believe that it makes me think that the story was written by a man. So, I don't know.
This is the whole, like, why am I feeling... Everyone feels like they're stupid sometimes, right? That's what imposter syndrome is. So, but instead of saying, oh, I'm stupid, and she realizes she's not, so she's like, oh, this boy's making me witless, even though it's, like, just feeling... Even though she's doing amazing, it feels like she's not.
Sure, yeah. The blaming of emotional dysregulation on the other party rather than on the nature of the relationship is
right.
a failing that they have. But it amuses me how a man writing a story about romance that we mostly all agree categorically is not good at romance. To be like, the way he like looks at the fourth wall and stares right through it and then bounces off of it. Just like, I love it. I have opinions, but they are mostly those of amusement. Like, oh, Jordan. But I love the fact that we get an extremely fairy tale fantasy relationship in this whole thing. He's got lots of subtle ones and like cloak and dagger stuff and like enemies to lovers. And he also has just like a stock fantasy romance, like from a PG story about princesses and peas or whatever. And it is cute, but it's just, oh, it's so unrealistic. I love it.
What is a realistic romance? I'm not sure I've ever really read a well done romantic novel.
Oh, because I don't know.
Yeah, because like they're either, on the romance side of things, which are absolutely all as ridiculous as anything that's happening in Wheel of Time, or they're like on the British romance of like, and then Lord Farquaad proposed to my mother's sister, and I'm just like, oh, what is going on? I don't understand.
So I will say that generally, if it's written by queer non-men, it will be a good romance, just off the bat. If you read stuff written by straight white men, it's going to be boring and the same as every other one. And I will say also, I have yet to actually break into the genre, but I have been spending a lot of time with a romance writer on Discord and Twitter, just like following her conversations about the publishing industry. And apparently there's a lot of diversity in the so-called romance genre.
Okay.
She's a pretty well-respected author and has a lot of opinions about the assumptions people make from the outside about how shallow and narrow the genre is, when in fact it's quite broad. So I would recommend looking up Kit Rocha, I think that's how you say it, or Bree on Twitter, and reading queer romance. But I also haven't done that myself. That's just what I read is the good suggestion. So I believe it's out there, but I don't know that I understand it myself. So I don't know that I'm a great recommender of actual titles and authors.
No, I believe it's out there. I'm just haven't really found it. Not that I've gone looking, right, either. It's not necessarily a genre that I've dug deep into. I've only skimmed the surface of it, which, of course, is the worst of the...
Right, yeah, whatever rises to the top is going to be, like, the trashiest, least amazing stuff. But, I think a lot of sci-fi has relationships I like, but they're often, like, friendships and working relationships that may or may not include an element of so-called romance. So, I don't know. I'm not the person to ask this question. But they exist, according to impassioned discussions about publishing that I fly on the wall for in a different Discord server.
But no, I don't think romance was ever what I read Wheel of Time for, right? Like, I don't think I would ever be like, oh my god, the romance, that's what really blew me away, right? It was the friendships and the characters and the plot and the mystery and the world and the foreshadowing. Ooh, the foreshadowing.
Yeah. All right, I'm definitely going to put some links into the show notes for the people I was talking about for the romance stuff. Okay. Moving back to the romance that is happening right here. The three girls gather their courage and march into the room to confront Rand, which makes Rand very physically upset. I think he tries to seize the power, but maybe it's honestly just the adrenaline of having the women actually walk into the room. Like, it could be either, honestly.
So He jumps up, and we immediately get a reaction where he must embrace the source.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
The gagging and heaving with dry retches is like, I mean, yes, sometimes seeing your crush can be a lot, but it's characteristic of when he seizes the source.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what he's trying to do with it. He doesn't actually do anything. It's just, I guess, a reflexive grabbing for the hilt of his sword kind of action.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is just somebody came in the room, so he immediately reached for the source.
The door just opens unexpectedly.
Right.
It's danger!
Right.
I'm in danger!
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit, Rand. A little bit.
Skosh.
Right. But he's finishing up a conversation with Nynaeve, which says, in any case, you win the argument, which is basically, I think they're arguing about whether Nynaeve was going to go with him right away.
Right, which is basically the note that we left the last chapter on, is that they would not like it one bit. So this is after however many minutes to hours of arguing. They don't like it, but now he's accepting it because he needs to get away from his girl crushes.
Right. And I think whatever other reasons Nynaeve was like, no, I need to go with you. I can't leave you behind. Like, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, I need to go. Who knows? Who knows what her argument was? So I'm sure it was...
Either way, she wins.
She wins, so. Yeah. So she's going. We get this Min and Avienda saying men at the same time in exasperation. So again, one of those...
Because Rand looks right past his two long-lost girlfriends and says, Min, are you coming with me? And it's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Are we chopped liver? What's happening?
But I mean, we've talked about this, how like he basically thinks... Elaine broke up with him in a letter, and Avienda has abandoned him completely to go back and hang out with other people, right? Like, they slept together once. That was a one-night stand. That wasn't a relationship.
Right. He thinks that they don't want him, but he still wants them.
Right.
And he has this whole thing where he knows Min is trying to, like, bring them all into the same room, but he doesn't really know why. Mm-hmm. And it's just a lot of meaningful eye contact, basically.
Min makes the toes joke, which is...
so funny.
Yeah.
I don't know what anyone's toes have to do with this, or feet either. I'll never not love that line.
And I like that later,
I love you, Min.
She clears it up that she does know what toe is, and she's just literally making the pun, right? Like,
yeah, she's like, I was trying to break the ice.
Yeah.
That I'm actually not making that joke in ignorance. Like, I love Min. I love Min so much. Yeah, Rand apologizes for sending her all the Suldam and Damani.
While also insulting them and, like, not calling them real Aes Sedai and, like, being like, oh, all these other women must have been mistaken for Aes Sedai. There's no other Aes Sedai here other than those two. And they're like, Rand, us, we... And he's like, no, I mean, yeah, totally. Wink. Like, very non-believing...
If they didn't have such a short timeline, he would not be getting bonded and fucked senseless today.
Right.
He would be sleeping in the doghouse until he figured it out. But they're on a timeline, so they just have to forgive all of that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that Matt does better than Rand. Matt actually acknowledged them as Aes Sedai fairly early on in their journey, and Rand still has trouble with that. In
fairness, I don't think Rand's ever been in a position of seeing his people being disrespected by the Aes Sedai the way Matt did. Right, Matt's show of deference really came in the context of, oh no, only I get to fuck with women from my village. All you Aes Sedai can fuck off. I don't think Rand's ever actually had that opportunity, and maybe he'd act differently if he did, at least internally. Maybe not. Matt isn't trying to save the world. He's just trying to save his own skin, so.
God, who would have thought a few sisters running away from Elida would grow into a rebellion against the White Tower? It's like, it was more than a few sisters. It was half the damn tower. Well, a third. Half of the tower that was likely to get involved. Right. Yeah. A third was always going to hold aside. But yeah, it's his read of the situation from incomplete information it shows his biases around Aes Sedai in general and women in general and Aes Sedai in particular, like organizations. Like he thinks that they're doing things very differently than they are. So he mentions Matt and he touches his forehead because he gets the swirl of colors. So that's another reference to that. And then this thing, at this rate, I won't be surprised if my friends in the tower work up enough courage to come out in the open. There's a weird phrasing to this, and I don't know if you ever get resolution to it. But he always calls Alviarin and her letters of loyalty to him my friends in the White Tower. I think he knows they're dark friends. That's why he calls them my friends. They're my dark friends in the tower. I think he's actually smarter than we give him credit for with that. Like, I don't think he's believing Alviarin is saying, I think he's figured out that somebody's lying to him, and a lie means that they're dark friends.
I would agree with that, because I figured, when Fires of Heaven, when he gets the letter, he talks it over with Moraine, immediately leaps to the correct conclusion about who's actually sending it. And I always wondered at this line, because it's like, who does he think is on the other end of that? Does he think that they're actual dark friends or just a faction of Eyes to Die? Because this line makes me really wonder. Like, obviously it's someone working against Elida, but is he deciding that they're dark friends or just undermining Elida friends?
I think that friends is significant. I think he keeps dropping that every time he talks about Alviarin and her friends and the letter and my friend, they're like, we're friendly. To who? The Dark One, right? Like, friends is a loaded word, the same way like children is.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I've never been quite sure about that line, but you make a very good argument.
That being said, we never get any evidence for that because he never really addresses that, because Egwene clears them out before they do anything.
Yeah, no, that ends up being a red herring of a plot. But it's nice to be reminded of it, that it's still viable at this point.
The other sisters, the real sisters, he would have been about to say.
Yeah. But then we have one of the rarest of rare things in all of Wheel of Time, which is characters deciding that they need to sit down and talk something out and then actually doing it.
Right?
It's really weird.
It is a little weird. They mostly get Rand to agree to what they wanted him to, but,
They talk it out.
They talk it out.
Elaine says, we need to talk about this. Mm-hmm. And then they do. Mm-hmm. And they come out of the conversation with like a new understanding of their collective relationship. It's just, if this happened more often, we wouldn't have so many books. Right.
But I love Lan and Nynaeve's reactions through this whole thing. Because they're basically the mom and dad, right, of this group of people. Mm-hmm. They're the elders in the room who have like more maturity. And they're like, y'all are doing what?
Kids these days, am I right?
Yeah. Like, what kind of relationship are you guys getting into?
What Tumblr hashtag are you kids into these days? Yeah, no, did you see that picture from, I think it was like Comic-Con or somewhere, one of the places where they were all doing a panel, the actors from the show. And there was one picture of Daniel and Zoe sitting next to each other, and they just both have this look on their face, and they're looking off camera, and it was captioned like Lan and Nynaeve when Rand professes his love to the three girls, because it was exactly the face that you imagined them making. Just like, what? What did I just hear? What words just came out of your mouth?
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Oh, the most awkward fucking thing to have to sit there and witness. But yeah, it's an incredibly straightforward and awkward conversation where they all profess their love for each other and the air is just cleared, cards on the table.
And Rand's like, are you sure? You know what it means? Or, well, that's more when they want to channel or when they want to bond them.
First, he just says it all because he assumes that if he says, I love you all equally and I would be with all three of you if I could, that would make them all leave him alone. Right. That's the thing he was trying to avoid, but now he's like, fine, cards on the table, please run away now. And Nynaeve shrieks at him for saying it. It's delightful. And then each of the women responds in her own way. Elaine says, I love you and I want to marry you. Aviendha says basically the same thing, but she says it Aiel, right? My heart is in your hands, and if you make a bridal wreath for me, I will pick it up. And then Min, being delightfully raunchy, says, if you don't know by this time that I love you, then you're blind, deaf, and dead. Which is like, whoa, Min, okay. What? Okay.
Yeah, let's just say her method of expressing her love is physical touch.
Yes, her love language is comforting.
Yes. Let me comfort you, Rand.
Yeah.
This is what leads to all the memes of people like the universe sitting on Rand's shoulders, sitting on Min's dump truck ass. Right? Like that's the level of things that are being supported. God. What has the internet done to me?
Too much.
Yeah,
far too much.
Far too much. Oh, man. Don't want to talk about that.
And I like that Rand says that he would be willing to marry all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't really ever seem to feel like he has to pick. Min spends some time thinking about, well, which one's he really going to marry? And there's a bit of that, but I feel like Rand is always like, I'll take as many of them as will have me.
Right.
And if I can have all three, I am super into that. And I like that he never questions that aspect of this relationship.
He never puts one above the others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's like, I couldn't. You can choose. You can decide who I get access to, but I could never pick one over the other. And then they all look at him like he's a pastry and say, we need to go talk about something else in a different room where mom and dad aren't watching.
Come upstairs to my bedroom and we need to talk.
We need to study for our tests. Yep, that's what we're doing.
It's finals. I mean, the last battle.
Yeah. And then Nynaeve starts, instead of challenging them, she starts blathering. And Elaine is like, what on earth is Nynaeve hiding if she's going to allow us to do this? And we, of course, know that it's the part where she's going to steal a bunch of Angreal and run away with Rand to go cleanse the source.
Oh, that little thing? Yeah, that little thing. Yeah.
You know.
Just a little side quest while you're, saving the world.
Side quest. Minor side quest.
It really does, at this point, kind of feel like a side quest. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, we need to make sure it's cleansed before we can save the whole world, or else it's not going to mean anything.
It's like one of those side quests you have to complete in order for the boss battle to unlock, but like, it's still just a side quest at the same time. Yeah.
Which is even more the case when nobody reacts to it. Like, we cleansed the source. And was like, yeah, sure you did, buddy. Let's go. Get on it. Come on.
Yeah, it really only counts for the boss battle, not any of the plot in between. So yeah, Rand puts his face back on, and Min and Aviendha have another bonding moment where they both have very similar opinions of how incredibly terrible his disguise is. That face would make a goat faint. It's good.
I am who I am. You just don't see it, Rand said.
He did not have to pick something so elaborately disgusting. He's projecting a lot of his self-loathing into this mask of mirrors.
A rose by any other name would be as grotesque. Yeah, and then I enjoy the two guards women just having a ridiculous reaction, being like, well, that's not her lover. Good God, that man is ugly.
I would not tap that.
Yeah.
Like, they're both looking at each other like, I wouldn't tap that if you paid me.
Whenever I see two guardsmen reacting to what the nobles are doing in a comedic way, I always think of Shakespeare and his, like, two idiots standing outside a door, right? He has that so much in all of his writing. It's just hard not to see this is just a little bit of Shakespearean going on right there, which is, of course, entirely appropriate for Andor and Caemlyn and Rand and all the stuff that's going on.
Also appropriate for how well read Jordan was.
Right.
How much he appreciated all the fine things in life. I'm sure that a few hat tips to Shakespeare were on his list of things to do with this series.
You think? Yeah.
One or two.
Right.
One or two.
Well, it's also, they talk about, a lot of times they're writing about the same thing, which are these myths and legends, right? So, like, of course, Shakespeare's writing about myths and legends and kings and, Naturally. So they go into the room with him, and the guards are like, really? And the girls are like, yes, really, and shut the door. And Rand immediately is like, I need a drink, which is a very uncharacteristic thing for him to say when we're in his POV, but also doesn't seem out of character given how stressed he is and how often he clenches a wine cup to death in various instances. Well, I mean, don't forget, he's like seizing and letting go of the source to put on the mask of mirrors, so that's probably making him pretty nauseous. So I think he just needs something to, like, wash the nausea out of his mouth and to the back of his throat.
Sure, a little antiseptic sting.
Yeah.
Just like, all right, wake up.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, she sees that he's not channeling, right? He's not warming the wine. He's not floating it on air. He's not doing any of the stuff he would do as a normal channeler who wants to use the power and will find any excuse to do so. Now he's avoiding using the power because it's making him nauseous and sick.
He used to be flamboyant, and now he's conservative?
Right.
What's going on? What's going on, Rand?
Are you sure you're not sick? And it's like, no, I'm just going insane. That's all.
Yeah. I'm not sick. I am sick.
And I do think that the nausea is actually an effect of the crossing balefire streams and the way his thread is crossing over with Moradin's.
You think it has more to do with that than the channeling sickness per se?
Yeah, I do. I do think that his seizing of the power, what that sickness he gets when he grabs it, is caused by the doubling and the double vision he gets, and the sort of the bouncing back and forth between him and Moradin. Because he sort of makes that connection with Moradin every time he seizes the one power.
Does that mean Moradin makes that connection with him whenever... Oh, no, Moradin doesn't seize the one power. Moradin seizes the true power. So it wouldn't go both ways just by virtue of the choices Moradin makes.
Yeah, I mean, although Moradin was channeling the true power when the balefire streams crossed, so maybe there is some effect there.
Yeah, so maybe Rand is getting some sickness just from when Moradin chooses to use the power as well, not only his using it. It's rough. I don't envy him.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem to be quite as a two-way thing, or maybe it's just that Moradin is so much healthier.
Well, there's that too, yeah.
I do have a theory that possibly part of Rand's strength is actually stealing from Moradin, and Moradin's weakness is being stolen from Rand's, sick, cut, wounded body. And the reason that Rand is able to keep going is that he's actually, basically using the strength of Moradin's body.
Kind of like a warder Eyes to Die, like being able to draw strength from your warder.
Right. But basically, Moradin's experiencing all the pain that Rand's in, more so than Rand. And that's almost why he's able to shrug it off, is because he feels like he's in the healthy body, because he's inside Moradin's body.
I don't know, Rand's been dissociating from how broken his body is since book 1.
True, yeah.
But he's got a lot to dissociate from now, so if Moradin can take even a little bit of that.
That's what I'm thinking, is some of it's on Moradin, because we know Moradin's feeling his pain, right?
And that gets more pronounced as we get through the timeline.
Right.
I think
so.
It gets more obvious, or more acute as time goes on. So yeah, that makes sense.
And sort of the reason I think that the bond becomes more intense is that they start as separate threads, but the pattern is merging them together into one thread, and that moment is going to be at the last battle, right? And that as we approach that moment in time, the pattern sees this opportunity these two people are together, one of them's going to die, I can just redirect those two threads into one, and I don't have to worry about the consequences of the paradox of them balefiring balefire. Mm-hmm. And so that there's this interesting intersection of the two of them that the pattern's creating.
Yeah, I'm nodding to that.
But then because we're in that in between time between when the balefires happen and when they connect, whenever he uses the power, there's that connection, and he wobbles back and forth between the two threads, and that's causing the nausea and the double vision and all the issues when he ceases the one power. That's how I think of it in my head.
It makes far more sense than random hand waving, which is all I've ever had. That's way more thought out than my explanation, which was reasons. So I'll take it. There is reasons. Haha.
So they say they want to bond him, and he, does the typical, don't you know the pain? I'm going to go insane. I'm going to die. Do you know what that means?
And even if you did still want that, I've already been bonded, so whatever.
So whatever.
Months. I got raped months ago, and I never told you about it. But, it's fine.
That is a good analogy, in being like, well, I got raped, so I'm no good anymore. I'm not. And then being like, no, it doesn't matter.
Right, I'm damaged goods. He's basically saying I'm damaged goods.
Exactly.
Which is get that out of your mouth, Rand.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how that works.
So I do like their response to that, which is, she has more toe to him than she could repay in a lifetime, and to us. But also being like...
One bond doesn't ward you against another. That's just a custom, and we'll take you, even with that baggage and that issue. We'll sort it out. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we learn later that this weakens Alana's hold on Rand. Not that she had very much in the first place, but it weakens what she's got on him. And also weakens his connection with Moradin to a certain extent. There's only so much of Rand's soul and agency sharing to go around, and so when 3 more people force their way in, the ones already there get their portions diminished a bit, which works out really well for Rand, despite how Darthy he gets. It could have been worse without these 3 counterbalances.
And this is a much better bond because this is one he wants and one he gave permission for.
He consents to this, And there's a paragraph here that I do want to point out because I categorically ignore it as being wrong. Jordan just got it wrong. until she came to realize that she loved Avienda as much as she did Rand, just in a different way. And Min, too, a sister. Avienda and Min were different. They were part of her. It's just like, okay, first of all, I have no desire to fuck someone, just to share a fucking partner with a sibling. That seems weird. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're just sisters. It's fine. Just straight up, no. Like,
I mean, the sister-wife thing is something the Aiel culture has, right? And that's sort of the template he's using.
Sure, yeah. But then the whole idea that there is no homoerotic energy happening between the three women at all, and oh no, I love them in a completely different way. Like, I don't care that he put that on the page. I think that he's wrong. Like, come at me for being textually incorrect. Fine. This is a hill I will die on. That these are just things that Jordan put in because he didn't know what he was writing. He thought it would be too spicy if he didn't put in a caveat. Something, it's wrong. It is canonically wrong. So that's my piece on that.
I have no problem adopting that set of reality, right? I mean, that's fine with me.
That's heart canon.
Yeah.
Or spleen canon almost.
Right, yeah. It's like we are directly contradicting what the author puts in there because of the times the book was written versus the times we live in now and the way it should have been if the book was updated.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I feel.
Your mileage may vary. It's
fine. Right. There's just too many other lines where they're like sleeping in the same bed and they miss each other, and you know, and I know all those can be technically platonic, but it's just the overwhelming weight of evidence falls on the not a platonic relationship side. And it's hard for me to be like, you wrote in all of that stuff, Jordan, and then threw in these lines that are like, but I don't love them like that. It's like, okay, getting everything else past the censors required a straightforward, because Jordan never tells us anything straightforward. So when he does, I'm immediately suspicious that he's lying to us.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, right. So what he's actually saying here is look at what's actually happening in the background while she tells you a lie.
Right. Like, how many pages of these books are just dress descriptions as character development? Like, anything that can be said quickly is not the complete story.
And remember, and I said I can lie to you as long as she can lie to herself.
Yes. But then they do the consent thing and they say, please let us bond you. We won't force it on you. We will just make puppy eyes and pull our dress cleavage down so much that you can't possibly say no. It's not forcing when you're just making puppy eyes.
And then I really like next, which is the description of how the weaves work and how she learned from the sister wife weave how to create a shared weave that includes multiple people into one result. And she's like, oh, I was able to incorporate and basically build the water bond weave combined with the sister weave and create this multiple sister, basically a sister warder weave.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I love the description.
And then the way so that she embraces the power and creates a bond between herself, Elaine, and Min. And then Avienda creates a bond between Min and Avienda. And by having those shared sort of gears over Min becomes the bond between the two of them. And she and then that becomes the three of them. And the four is, there's, right, two bonds on Min, one on Elaine, one on Avienda. Those are the four, and they become three because the two on Min bond together and become the same thing. So then four weaves, or rather three now, yet they all seem the same weave.
Yeah, yeah.
And then from that grouping, which brings the three of them together, they reach out and they each have one bond that they weave together. So that's three bonds that weave together and touch Rand at the same time, and they each get an equal bond because that one bond becomes three.
Right, those three like braid together into one cord, which is then the warder bond.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of the way that the overlap work. It makes me almost feel like it's some sort of like molecular bonding. Like there's like an electron sharing kind of like it's visually pleasing the way he writes it. And it feels like it follows some like very mathy geometry rules for like making these things collapse together and hold together with his rules. And again, given that he was a physicist, like the grace and beauty of how he describes this just feels based on sound principles, you know, for his magic system that he created out of his brain. And they're like entangled weaves. Like they're two weaves, but they're the same weave. Like it's very wibbly wobbly, spacey wacy.
But I think it's prepping you for picturing the weaves because, you know, the whole apex of this book is the cleansing.
Right.
Which is a huge, like, really detailed description of how weaves are actually moving. And there you got the interaction of Saidin and Saidar. This is really a warm-up of being like, okay, like, there's some real intricacies happening with these weaves. And as our characters have leveled up, they understand what's going on to the point where they can actually stitch together other weaves and create something new and novel. And that's what Rand is going to be doing, only he's doing it on a grander scale with a bigger power base. And, you know, doing it to cleanse the taint.
Right. And we kind of saw what that could look like with the Bowl of the Winds, but it was just so big. This is getting us down to this very, very, like, granular detail, which is, really what he brings into the cleansing. Is like, it starts out at this, you know, subatomic level, right? The essence of reality itself is where the power exists. And then it also is like a world-changing thing. So, yeah, it's so fun when our characters get, you know, into higher levels of knowing how the power works so they can tell us what's happening better.
And, you know, you might also say it's like Jordan settling into his world a little bit. Yeah. He's established all the rules very well, and now he can, you know, maybe bounce off those rules a little bit and really create something new and interesting.
Yeah. He gets to play in his sandbox now.
Yeah. And then there's a lot here in the girl's reaction to the bonding. Right? So there's Min. There are pains you don't even seem to know, as if you've lived with them so long they're part of you. Those herons on your hands, you can still feel the branding. Those things on your arms hurt, and your side. Oh, light your side. Why aren't you crying, Rand? Why aren't you crying? One, yes, that's a lot of pain. I've always never liked that, like, the herons on your hands, you can still feel the branding. Because when he initially got them, he described them as not being able to feel anything. Like, he couldn't feel them at all. They were just there as decoration.
No, when he got the first one, it hurts. He puts, like, a salve on it and wraps it up. The second one, I don't think we ever check in with him right after he gets it. I always assumed that they were pretty well both healed by the time he has both. The
second one happens during the battle in the sky, and he is healed immediately afterwards. They just can't heal the wound in his side, but they do heal the branding right away.
Yeah, so I don't know why they would hurt.
Lanfear heals the branding, the first branding he gets.
Right. Yeah, no, that's true. Right. So it does hurt initially, but then it gets healed, and it gets healed magically in both cases. So why would he
still have
pain? And likewise for the tattoos. Like, first of all, they're magic tattoos, not needle and ink tattoos. But even if they were needle and ink tattoos, like, it's been long enough, they shouldn't really do more than itch a little bit.
Right. I can't imagine that.
I've got arm tattoos. Like, I don't see why the magic tattooing would still hurt at this point. But he is in so much emotional pain that attaching it to his physical traumas makes some sense. You can't just be like, oh, you're in a 12 out of 10 on the pain scale.
Right.
But yeah, and the whole, like, why aren't you crying thing is like, we'll ask any person suffering from chronic pain why they aren't crying. It's because there's only so many hours in the day and water in your body. Like, you learn to live with it when you don't get to escape it. You learn to live with it. Min's getting shocked into it and is surprised. But it's like, if Rand spent all his time crying, then these books would also not go anywhere.
Yeah.
He has to just power through, like people who live with chronic pain. Like, next we get the line from Aviendha that for some reason we've all decided represents Rand's Dragonmount moment. For some reason we decided that when Avi says the veins of gold that represent love, the veins of gold, you really do love me. For some reason we've all decided collectively that means the moment he gets epiphanized on Dragonmount. I don't know why.
Well, because it's the moment when he realizes the point of living is his love for these three women. Right? The veins of gold is what convinces him, because I mean that is the title of the chapter. First of all, is Veins of Gold. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we haven't been making that up out of fucking nowhere. Okay, good. I feel vindicated in us.
Yeah. No, that's a very important point. Is that the love he feels, which we see here, right? We see Avienda, and he doesn't realize what it is. He just describes them as veins of gold. But here we get the translation: veins of gold are the love for these women. And it makes sense in context. He's talking about how love is the reason we get to live again, so we can love again, so we can try again. And that's the whole point of life. And that's why I'm not going to end the wheel, right? So this is a huge important moment for what I might actually say the more important moment than the last battle, right? Because I've always argued that the Dark One himself can't destroy the world. He has to convince the dragon to do it. That's why everybody's terrified of the Dragon Reborn. The Dragon Reborn is the only one who can actually break the wheel.
Right.
And if he does, that moment would have happened on Dragon Mount. But instead, he makes the decision, and Veins of Gold stops that. And I basically think from that moment on, the wheel cannot be broken. They've essentially won the last battle in that moment. It's just a question of how well are they going to come out the other side.
Right. How does the next stage start? What's the playing board look like? And that's why the wolves have the last hunt begins or it does not.
Right.
Thing. And they celebrate when Rand has his moment because they say, now the last hunt can begin. We live to fight the last battle.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to being torn apart by a Rand who's decided to end the wheel.
Right. But there's so many ways that the last battle playing out can look that you still have to have the last battle. And that's why Veins of Gold and the last battle are not truly the same thing. But you're right. The true battle is Veins of Gold. And yeah, you're right. We're getting the language to understand what that phrase means here. And we also get that his emotions are too rigid because, yes, yes, but it's good to get that from an internal person who's not Rand's perspective.
And it's also good to see that laced through the, almost hardened pine sap, almost stone, laced through them, the golden veins pulsed and glowed whenever he looked at Min or Avienda or her, right? He loves all three of them, and that's what's keeping him from solidifying too hard. That's what's going to break apart that stone, is those veins of gold laced throughout it. That's why he doesn't, harden down to Quendiar.
Right. They are the flaws, the inclusions,
right.
The things with a different melting temperature, whatever you
right.
want to call it. Yeah, they're what keep him anchored.
The weaknesses in the stone that shatter him apart and make him open to accepting emotions again.
Yeah, they are trees and mockins and lycishes. Wow.
Yeah.
Lichens and mosses. I can speak words.
That's what you were going for? That's impressive. You took a trip on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is one more thing. Okay, Columbo. Just before I go, one final thing. There's something they've had from you that I haven't. Elaine began and choked.
She thought this would be the easy part.
No.
It's so funny, too, how she's like, oh, by the way, I know you were going to leave in like 5 minutes, but actually you need to take like the next 10 hours to stay with me.
Right. We've got about 10 hours of banging to get done, right?
Yeah. Like they just both take a pause in their calendars and just stop doing all the important like dragon princess shit they're doing, and they just fuck all day.
Right. All day. All night and into the next morning. And,
like, more power to them, but like, damn, that was a change of plans. It seems to go off without a hitch.
Mm-hmm. And we do know that during that time when they were all together, Min had her viewing that about the babies, which we'll talk about when we get to it.
Yeah. But yeah, for now, Min and Avienda are making a graceful retreat, so that way Elaine can make fuck me eyes at Rand and have him help her take her dress off.
Hey, at least it's not in a snow igloo. It's
true. It's a much warmer environment than Avienda got. But, like, she gives him the most come fuck me eyes, like, ever before the line about taking off her dress by herself. To help me with my buttons. Eyes just, like, dilating rapidly. And then they fuck a whole bunch, and it's probably better than it was for Avi, because now Rand has practice with Min.
Oh, Jesus.
Just saying, he's gotten a lot of practice since the last time he acquired a new girlfriend. And he gets to to be the first lover of all 3 of his women, which is another thing I would like to headcanon out of existence. But the princess being deflowered by the dragon is certainly appropriate. So, cut to black.
Even men? Are we sure about that?
Yeah, she says, "Do you think I would do with you what I've never done with any other man?" Something like that.
I think that was Fael, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's a line I would bail fire.
Yeah,
like,
that's
no,
another line.
Min has been around taverns for a while, and she's tried everything that she's wanted to try.
Yeah. Let's add that to the heap of things Jordan put in there just to get past the censors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll put that on that pile. That seems appropriate. So this is the least cut to black sex scene of the whole series, honestly. It's like, cut to black, psych, it's going to be the entire conversation for the next POV, but not with the people actually doing the act, only with other people.
Because everybody and their fucking mother is experiencing the sex.
Oh, God, it's so much. It's so voyeuristic, but like
Shall
in
we
the
start
wrong
the
way.
list?
Oh, let's go.
All right. So Rand and Elaine, right? Connected to Elaine, you've got Brigitte. Connected through the Warder Bond, you have Min and Avienda, right? Matt and Perrin, if they think about Rand, get to see it.
Anytime in the next 10 hours.
Anytime in the next 10 likely. Hours. Seems like they might see something. Certainly there's quotes later to be like, why is Rand naked with that girl? Oh, yeah, okay.
That's with Min, but yeah, totally.
Min, yep. Moradin is experiencing what Rand is feeling in his body.
Alana,
his first bond.
Yeah. His first Aes Sedai.
His first Aes Sedai bond.
Has a warder.
Right. Who was also then probably experiencing some of the feelings. Yeah. That his
at least experiencing Alana's reaction to those feelings.
And if you really want to stretch it, Moradin has the Kasuvra of Moghedien and Sindane. So if he's feeling particularly a certain way, he might induce emotions in them. They may pay for it.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a direct sexy feeling, but they may get some emotional dysregulation signals from Moradin fondling the Kasuvra and maybe crushing them. So that takes us to 9 and 2 halves, which adds up to 10. That's a lot of people for what is supposed to be a private moment. I mean, technically, Rand and Elaine are 2 of those, so take it down to 8, but it's too many. Like, unless everyone consented to it and you're on a stage, why are there this many people?
Rand, and I mean, LTT. He's thumbing his ear and humming.
I mean, you're not wrong. He definitely likes Rand's taste in women.
Yes. Gee, I wonder why Rand and LTT have the same taste in women.
Oh, God.
So yeah, no, there's a lot of people, fictional or not. I mean, I guess they're all fictional technically, so
Not Brigitte. Brigitte's a real person. But yeah, plot-wise, Avienda and Min come out of the doors. They get into a little snit with the guardswomen, and it's more of the, oh, wow, Min and Avienda are basically the same person. Ha, 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 that's funny.
Right.
And they walk off. Min has this funny thought where she wants the guards to stay out of Elaine's hair, but also she hopes that they'll keep her out of trouble. And I'm just like, Min, you're trying to have it both ways. No. No. Anyway, the important thing that I noticed here is that Avienda puts on her bracelet.
Mm-hmm. Which means she's officially courting Rand again.
She is on an even footing with Elaine again, I think, is what that was about.
Okay.
So even if Elaine doesn't have a similar bracelet, at least now they're both getting to fuck him and getting to acknowledge their love.
Got it. Yep. That's right. Okay, so that goes back, wow, deep cut, because that goes back to when she promised Elaine she would watch over Rand and make sure nobody fucked him, and then she fucked him, so she had toe. And now that they've resolved that whole problem, she can wear the bracelet that gives her even footing, because Rand gave Elaine something.
No, I mean, he's going to give her a flower, but I don't think that that's why Avi does this. I think it's just that her and Elaine have now had an equal amount of sex. I would argue that maybe Elaine's going to have slightly more than Avi did, but whatever. One night, we'll say.
Yes. But that means that she can wear the bracelet again because she's back on even terms. She's in a relationship with Rand.
Yeah, it doesn't mark her betrayal of Elaine anymore.
Right.
It used to mark her betrayal. I mean, she had nightmares where that was like the manacle holding her down as she ran away from Rand. Like, it's no longer a sign of shame. Now it can again be just a token of the fact that she's really into that guy.
I also think it had to do with the dreams and prophecies that she had when she became a Wise One apprentice.
Oh,
right?
her three ring future visions.
Right. So I think in some of those, it was an indication that once she got the bracelet, she was inevitably going to be in love with Rand. Right. So I think there's maybe that was like a sign to her that she was, going to be in a relationship with him. Yeah,
because you're right. When he first gives it to her, she puts it on like it's a poisonous snake or something. And I never quite understood that. But you're right. I bet that it totally was a icon in her future visions. And yeah, it's a really important token of her relationship to Rand. And like you said, Rand's been going around thinking that they don't have a relationship. Avi's been carrying this bracelet with her, but not feeling like she can wear it. Like their relationship was on a very different footing than it is now. And so her going to put the bracelet on says, yes, I know where Rand and I stand. And obviously then she has her whole Wise One apprentice identity crisis later. But for now, she's feeling much more secure in the use of that bracelet as a token. And then another one of these weird lines about poly stuff that RJ is just like, what's happening with... If Min is thinking that with Elaine, it almost isn't like sharing Rand at all. I was just like, even if I can't imagine being like, well, I'm not sharing someone. Like, if you were in a relationship with multiple people, I still feel like you would have some personal autonomy. Just because we're friends doesn't mean we're the same person. Like, I don't know. This relationship identity melding stuff that they seem to be thinking just doesn't. We're such good friends. It's like we don't even have possessions or relationships of our own. We're just the same person. What?
Yeah.
Emotional communism.
Right,
what?
Right. Those internal thoughts aren't always the best with, again, we've talked about Jordan's failings. That seems to be.
I mean, maybe someone thinks like that. Maybe that's someone is feeling seen by that phrase and that it describes their experience, but I'm not resonating with it in the slightest.
I think it's like, how do you get to the point where you're like, you realize you're not jealous, and how do you articulate that to be like, I'm really just not jealous of this person, like I feel like I'm okay with sharing, and I think that that's what she's trying to convey.
Yeah, and like I do get that, because jealousy is to me an emotion that's very confusing. So I get him fumbling around describing a non-jealous attachment.
Right.
But like that's as far as I can follow the way he actually describes it. Like, I don't think that that's the only way to experience non-jealousy. Kind of like how he like inverts a power structure and calls it a matriarchy, even though it's like, no, you just made a patriarchy where there's queens more often. Like, you didn't actually change the structure of society. You just made it more common for there to be queens. And like, it's a female empowered world, and it's not really, but like, that's what he was trying to do. And so he's trying to write what not jealousy looks like, but it's like, you just wrote the opposite of jealousy, not actually the absence of jealousy. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't understand jealousy. So again, like romance, I'm really fumbling with what bothers me about this. I don't have the right language.
I think it's interesting that she thinks of herself more in a competition than in a jealousy, right? Like, I wonder if I could create that same effect, right? And that's sort of, she has that thought and she realizes that's a very weird thought to have. There's a certain preconception about, I think, what people should be thinking when you're in these kind of relationships. Yeah. And she thinks also about like, well, which one's he really going to marry? Like, we say we're all going to share, but like ultimately he's going to pick one. And like, yeah, it's weird. I do like that each of the three women does have their own approach to how they negotiate the emotional weirdness of this. They aren't all carbon copies of each other when it comes to how they think about what sharing should be and how they feel about it. Like, each one has her own very culturally informed hurdles to overcome. Yeah, good diverse writing, even if you don't agree with every single one of those perspectives. Like, he is writing different perspectives. Yeah, and I appreciate that. It gives me more angles to find wrong things at. So we get the trick with the handkerchief where you're supposed to tie off the emotions in the bundle. That does seem to be linked to the ability to channel, to tie that off. And as we've seen with these bonds, there is, right, if you bond a man who can channel, you can't control him. There's aspects to the bond where someone who can channel can do something with it, and someone who can't channel cannot.
I had linked it more to the sweating, non-sweating, the not sweating trick. That was how I thought of this, is that the mental control that a channeler has that allows them to ignore temperature is the same thing that allows them to bundle up the emotions. That was the mechanism I was blaming, but you might be right.
And I've argued many times that, like, the ability to bundle up that weather sense and ignore it is actually linked to the ability to channel, not just, I mean, they say anyone can learn it, but, like, the only people we ever see doing it are channelers, so...
Exactly, and here we have Min and Brigitte both try the handkerchief trick and fail, while Avienda has no problem with it. So it feels like they're related in that way.
And it doesn't seem like a difficult thing to learn, right? If she doesn't, like, first try, as soon as you say it, yeah, I bundle up those emotions.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be as easy as learning how to like, cross your eyes or walk on a balance beam. Like, it would just take a second, and then you'd figure it out. So Min is stuck with full like 4K HD input from Rand and Elaine. I mean, mostly just Rand. Because I guess she doesn't really actually have a bond with Elaine. She's only got the bond with Rand.
Well, that's a good question, because they did that sister bond sort of beforehand, where they linked the three of them together and then bonded Rand as one. Are they linked? Can they feel each other? You're right. It seems like they can't. It seems like they only feel Rand.
Described as feeling each other. I think they should have, though. Yeah. I think that was a mechanical miss on Jordan's part. I think there should have been some wardering between them. But maybe not. I guess that's not how it works with greens and their multiple warders. But there's only one channeler in that scenario. But
we know Elaine and Avienda are linked through the first sister ceremony. So they do feel what the other one feels.
Right.
It's just not Min who's included. Which, by the way, is another link we didn't really include in our who gets to feel what. But, like, don't forget that Avienda gets to feel what Elaine is feeling and vice versa. So they're both being turned on by Rand and then being turned on by the other person being turned on.
That is very much the definition of a circle jerk.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Getting multiple bonds input for the same scenario from different people's perspectives. That's so messy. Everyone's inside each other's heads. So they start talking to try to block. Min starts talking to try to block out all the sensations that she's happening. And we get the line, two of them, a boy and a girl, both healthy and strong, that gives us and Elaine so much consternation for the rest of the entire series. Literally.
Yep. This is the line that Elaine says, "Oh, I guess I'm safe from now on."
But they don't remember the genders, and so she spends the whole time worrying about, oh, well, what if it's two girls? That would be the absolute worst. And, like, right here, it's a boy and a girl. It's exactly what you want. She's wishing for a boy and a girl, and we know that, but they get too drunk to remember anything except that they'll be healthy.
Got it.
It's so frustrating.
And Min foresees this before they even...
Yeah, the DNA has not yet been written on that conception, and she's already predicted exactly what's going to happen. Yeah.
So the GOP now says conception begins at prophecy. Life begins at prophecy. Is that what we're talking about? When did the life of those two kids begin? Well, before they were even conceived.
Yeah, at that point, if Rand and Elaine, were to be interrupted, it would basically be an act of manslaughter.
Right. No, I mean, you can't. You physically, there's nothing that could interrupt them. They literally have the strength of prophecy on their side.
Yeah. That is how pregnancy works.
Yeah.
The first is a prophecy, and then you have healthcare. That's how it works.
First you have prophecy, and then you have to pay bills for 65 years.
Ew.
Tell you what. Yeah, right?
Gross. And also, this is another one of those rare mentions of the fact that Randland casually has perfectly effective and available birth control.
Right.
Heartleaf tea. The miracle fantasy magic that allows for no unintended pregnancies ever.
Simple, easy to get, cheap.
Not being over-harvested to the point of extinction, not being controlled by a fascist state, not being poorly prepared by people who have lost their traditional knowledge around herbalism. None of that. It's just on all the pharmacy shelves. It's fine.
And then we get the other prophecy that drives me up a freaking wall. Avienda would have Rand's babies too. 4 of them at once. Something was odd about that, though. The babies would be healthy, but something's still odd.
It's so weird.
And the Sanderson explanation that we get in Avienda's
Future vision,
which is absolutely not canon for what's going to happen, right? Like,
right.
That is alterable, is that the 4 children that she has, well, first of all, that she's going to birth 4 children at once, right? And secondly, that they are actually going to be this, like,
Perma-channel.
Yeah, like, always able to embrace the one power forever and ever. And I don't like that, so I always headcanon that is a changeable future, and that I think, and this is, again, just headcanon, is that what Avienda is actually going to do is she's going to have 2 children, and Elaine's going to have 2 children, and Avienda will be the mother in the birthing first sister ceremony, and so there'll be 4 of them all at once in the birthing ceremony, but not actual birth. That'll just be the first sister ceremony. And Avienda will be what Amis was, right? The mother to the people who are bonded.
That makes sense. So then she is their mother in literally every way except from a biological flesh and blood of my womb kind of way.
Right.
Oh, I like that.
And that's how it's all at once, because it's this first sister bonding ceremony, so you can have more than just 2 people.
Yeah, that...
Because the human body doesn't do more than twins naturally.
Well, it does. I just looked it up on the internet that natural quadruplets happen in just 1 in 700,000 pregnancies.
Right. So, I mean, I guess you can throw Taviran at it and say, yes, Rand had twins and they both had, fraternal twins and they both had identical twins at the same time. And that's how you get 4. Right?
No, but even if you were to have that as a pregnancy, the medical technology of them giving birth would suggest that Avi probably wouldn't survive that.
Right. Or the babies.
Yeah. So I vastly prefer your magic in-world sound reasoning that gives us that something odd, but it's still a profound mother thing. Like, I like that so much better.
The something odd is it's not a natural birth. It's a birthing ceremony of the one power.
Right. And it's intimately tied to her own biological motherhood because she does have her own babies. And it's all a big, happy clan of Dragon Taviran. Because I like that.
You can see how a bunch of half-siblings who were born to different mothers maybe wanted to reaffirm their connection. And right, and they probably get raised together for a good portion of their childhoods. I mean, these are very much going to be a swarm of children that multiple parents are taking care of, right? Takes a village to take care of all of Rand's babies. Right. Especially with Rand not being around, fucker. Yeah. He could be. Again, Avienda's vision could change.
Yeah, he does have a whole fresh body that isn't missing parts and pieces at the end.
So Min reminds Avienda about the kerchief trick, and Avienda uses it, and it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which then makes her feel kindly towards Min for the first time, because that was really uncomfortable.
And this is the line where Min says she was just joking about the toes. She knows what toe is. She was just making a pun. Which kind of makes me like her all that much more.
I love Min. She's so funny. And then she says, maybe I have toe, but we'll have to find some other way than you carving or hitting on me. I could always groom your horse if we have time. Which I'm just like, on the one hand, she knows what Ji'ito is. On the other hand, she assumes that an Aiel has a horse.
I missed that. Like, you groom your horse, and I was like, I don't have a horse. No,
if I had a horse, I would immediately get rid of him.
Yeah. I completely missed that.
I love Min so much. She's so worldly and so ignorant.
That's so good. No, and I love how she compares her knife skills to Avienda's when I'm sure Avienda could take the knives away from her in a heartbeat.
Oh my god. All she knows how to do is a couple of show tricks that Tom taught her. She hasn't spent a lifetime stabbing people to death with them.
No.
But she's very proud of her skills, and Avienda lets her keep that dignity. It's very cute.
Very nice of Avienda.
Exactly. And then Brigitte comes rolling up.
Right. So auras danced around her and images flickered, more than Min had ever seen around anyone, thousands it seemed, cascading over one another. So obviously those are lifetimes of images, because most people don't even have, one image, but these are all important events in the pattern that Min is seeing.
Everyone probably represents the nugget of a story that then goes into the cycle that someone like Tom is telling.
I will say Encyclopedia pointed something out, that Min didn't see these visions around Brigida when they were together in Saladar. Well, they were together for at least a week.
Oh, shit, you're right. That conversation never came up.
The beginning of Lord of Chaos and of Fires of Heaven.
Huh. I wonder why that never got mentioned.
My only explanation, and this is reaching, is that, how her memories are fading? Mm. Well, maybe when they were memories, they weren't visions, and now that the memories are going away, they've become the visions around her.
We're seeing a visual representation of fading to myth.
Yeah, basically all the things that she's lost in memory have become the symbols and the prophecies and the foretellings. But we're also in past lives, right? Those are all the significant events in her life.
That's a reach, but it's so poetically beautiful. I'm going to take it.
Yeah, that's why there weren't any before, because she hadn't lost all those memories yet.
Yeah, that pleases my aesthetic sense, so I'm taking it.
Rather than just a plot hole that Jordan overlooked, because
now why have a plot hole when you can have a beautiful explanation like that? So Brigida goes on a rant because she's being stimulated in ways she did not consent to. And she says, I'll kick her tickle heart around the bloody palace. I failed anatomy / never took anatomy. What the fuck part of the body is a tickle heart? She doesn't mean pussy, does she? That's not what she's talking about. Is it?
But, the symbol, the Valentine's Day heart is basically a woman's ass.
Sure, peaches and hearts and asses are all similarly
shaped. Right, so her tickle heart. I think that's
her tickle heart.
That's her butt.
Her butt.
Yep.
I cannot right now.
Right? How many times have people said, I'll kick her ass around the bloody palace, right? Yeah. That's all she's saying. I'll kick her ass.
That makes the most sense. She's literally saying,
I'll kick her ass.
Okay, I'm putting the term tickle heart into Google, and nothing is coming up.
No, this is entirely in-world.
This is not weird. A weird Southern phrase that I should know.
No. This is just reading from context and understanding what a tickle heart could be.
I disapprove so strongly. The way that Kate reads this line is so fast in the audiobooks that I've never really slowed down and looked at what this word was. But tickle heart? Never call someone's ass a tickle heart. Just call it an ass. God.
It got past the censors. I think we're doing a lot of that in this chapter.
Oof, the chapter that got past the censors. Okay. All right.
I'll kick her ass.
That makes the most sense.
That's the
way
most
less vulgar than I'll kick her in the cunt.
Yeah.
Which was kind of how I was reading it. The next funny thing is she says, Brigida says of Elaine, when she behaves like an adult, I'll treat her as one. This is an adult activity that she's doing.
Right.
By
yes.
definition, that is what. Okay.
One would hope. Yes.
And then we get a very interesting line. 2 months.
Yeah. What the fuck?
I have a theory, but
please tell me, because I highlighted that and was like, I don't know what she's referring to. I don't know what's happening. Okay. So abruptly, Brigida glazed blue eyes bulged. The golden-haired woman's mouth dropped open, and she would have fallen if Min and Avienda had not each seized an arm. Squeezing her eyes shut, she sobbed just once and whimpered, 2 months! Shaking free of them, she straightened and fixed Avienda with blue eyes clear as water and hard as ice.
Yeah, so my only theory is that it's been 2 months since she last had sex with God O'Kane in the dream. But I have such a hard time believing that it's been only 2 months since she was ripped out of Taller God.
Yeah.
And we never get mention of her having any kind of romantic trysts at all. But that's the only thing I can think is that it's 2 months since she last had an orgasm. That's the only thing I can think. And it just doesn't fit the timeline. It doesn't fit her character. I mean, I'm sure Brigitte knows how to masturbate. Like, someone please make this make sense.
And then the next line, shield her for me and I'll let you off your share. Your share of what?
Of beating her. Yeah, she's in the prior page, she's like threatening, like, I'm going to beat you because you helped her into this. I will beat you both up. Right, and then she says, you know what? If you help me beat her up, I won't beat you up myself.
Got you.
But yeah, I
don't understand the 2 months comment.
Yeah, I don't, like, what has been 2 months? Because it's been more than 2 months since she got ripped out of Talleyrand Yard. It's been less than 2 months since they got to Andor and Camelin. What happened 2 months ago that would have any bearing at all on her experience of Elaine having her first orgasm? Or at least her first orgasm from, penetrative sex with Rand. Like, what? I'm going to delete this line if we can't make it make sense. I'm just going to add it to the burn pile. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's an emphasis on the word two, like as opposed to 1 month or 6 months, or... I can understand being upset at being forced to experience someone else's, like, earth-shattering orgasm. That would definitely be upsetting, but what does 2 months have to do with it? It took 2 months for her to come through that? What?
Well, don't forget, a lot has happened in 2 months, right? We're talking back in, like, Lord of Chaos times.
Yeah, so what happened to Brigitte in particular 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Chat, she's been edging for 2 months and Elaine is ruining it. Honestly, that makes more sense than anything else. Elaine, you ruined my streak.
Yep, I got nothing. I've got nothing here.
All right. Well, I think we can all collectively agree to just burn that line out.
Wait, did she take a drink right before that?
No. They go off to drink at the end of this conversation. They go off to get drunk as a drowned mouse.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm thinking is maybe 2 months. Did she stop drinking to be Palace Guard? And she's breaking that. She's like 2 months of being sober. Lil Jin brought that up.
I know that she talks about cutting back on alcohol when Elaine is pregnant later, and there's some implications that she's struggling with alcoholism at that point. But I don't recall any mention of her changing her drinking habits at this point. Like, she hasn't been yelled at by anyone for being a drunk. She hasn't, like, had any conversations about drug use at all that I can think of. Maybe she's just mourning the fact that she's been 2 months without a hangover, and she's going to have to get a hangover to deal with what's happening now. I mean, as a person who gives themselves hangovers kind of a lot, like, maybe that's it. But I don't know.
Just reading a little timeline stuff to see if I can find anything.
Yeah, what was happening 2 months ago?
Yeah, it's hard to exactly pinpoint how long ago that was.
Was that when Elaine did the red rod thing? Was that 2 months ago? It's been 2 months since Brigitte has been forced to experience Elaine's sexual side?
Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah. If anyone ever has an explanation, please let us know. Because it's just weird.
We'll try and revisit it.
Okay, so we have Min rapidly discovering that meeting your heroes sucks sometimes. It's like, you're Brigitte Silverbow, and a paragraph later she's like, this is Brigitte Silverbow? Oh my god. It's so funny.
But yeah, and I think here you really do have this thing where Brigitte says Silverbow's dead, I'm Brigitte Trehelion, right? And she's really saying that. Before she's always been like, no, I'm not Brigitte, what are you talking about? I don't know. But now she's like, no, I don't have any of my memories. Like, I'm really just the person you see before you. I don't have any special abilities. I'm just a person who's been thrown into this, and what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's like, I now know what it says on the tin, and it's not Silverbow.
Yeah, right.
Which it totally still is Silverbow. Like, she does so many amazing things. But whatever, that's the story she tells herself.
Because who she is never changed. She never had her memories before.
No. She never tried to do heroic shit. She just did what she had to do. That's always who she's been. But it is nice to represent the fact that she has made a certain amount of peace with where she's at and the world she's living in. She knows who she is and what her path through life is going to be. So she has an identity. And Silverbow is who she lost, right? She's like, Silverbow is dead. That's not who I get to be anymore. That's true. And then Min is so irritated that she just blurts out about the fact that they bonded a warder. And Elaine's just celebrating a little bit. Min likes to use C words as euphemisms for sex.
Celebrating. What are the other
Comforting.
ones? Ah.
Comforting and celebrating now. So we'll see what third term she comes up with to describe Avi.
Getting rid of celibacy?
Yeah. And then Brigida has a pretty realistic reaction to the news that it's Rand. Mother's milk in a cup. She could have fallen in love with anyone, but she had to choose him.
Which, weird that Brigida didn't know that already. I thought that they had all those late night conversations.
No, that was with Avi. Elaine doesn't, tell secrets in the dark to Brigida, apparently.
That's fair. Okay.
And I love what she says here. The man's too pretty to be good for any woman. Of course, Brigida would say that.
She likes him ugly.
Oh, yeah. She likes, what is it? Ugly beer as much as ugly men. I love that line.
So Brigida's wants to charge in and stop things. So she's like, this is getting out of hand. She has no right to do this in my head. I can't stop it. I don't want this.
Right. Which, in fairness, Elaine does have no right to be forcing that on other people. The water bond thing is something she should maybe be a little more conversant at before she does such intensive activities. But Brigida needs to be stopped. And Avienda says, I will pledge myself to obey you as apprentice to mistress. And Brigida never takes her up on that, as far as I can recall.
No, definitely not.
She just gets distracted by Usquai and never actually holds Avienda to that. And I'm like, Brigida, how did you leave that lying on the table? You were just offered the ultimate trump card on dealing with Elaine, and you just walked right by it for the Usquai.
She's distracted.
Usquai?
Yeah, and then the Usquai, they don't remember shit about this night, because when you go drinking, sometimes you forget some of the stuff that happens right before you go drinking.
Tequila makes the clothes fall off. It's not tequila.
Yeah, and this is whiskey, yeah.
But whiskey is also notorious for getting people into trouble.
Uh-huh.
And there's also this line here. I intend to get drunk enough to take off my clothes and dance on the table. And as best we can figure, that's what Elaine did with the red rod, right?
And not a hair drunker. Well, it wasn't that a cup of wine?
No, a cup of wine was when she almost got date raped by a...
Oh, that's right. Right.
The waiter.
Yeah.
And Avia wasn't there for that anyway. But yeah, Avienda says that that's a wonderful joke to what is being said. And so in my mind, that has to be that Elaine basically went full stripper performance with the red rod.
Right. Because that's the only indication that we get because no one will tell her anything about what happened. And that was books ago. Mm-hmm. And now this is a reference that Avienda and Brigida get, but Min do not. And therefore it's probably making fun of Elaine. And the only thing that we know it could be a reference to is the one time that she did something silly with the red rod and no one told her about it. So the dots line up to say that this is what Elaine did when she touched the red rod. And the fact that the red rod is basically a dildo is, kind of a fait accompli on the whole theory, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's just so specific and it ties it all up so well. And that's something that would be funny enough and not too serious. So that way you could just never tell Elaine what happened, right? All she did was take off her clothes and dance in front of a bunch of women. It's not like she got hurt or set anything on fire. You don't have to tell her. That can just be a joke. It's not serious, It's not like she assaulted someone. She just took off her clothes and danced on the table. It's just embarrassing and funny. Mm-hmm. And there's no Instagram, so there's no proof.
Right.
POV switch?
Yeah, so...
It's basically the Rita. It's a long-ass thing out. Quick POV switch back to Elaine to...
Do you want to read the whole thing? No, we can talk about it? Or is it too long?
I can. It's not a whole lot to talk about it in it. But yeah, I can read it. When Elaine woke the next morning, the bedchamber was icy. A light snow was falling on Camelin, and Rand was gone. Except inside her head. And her uterus. That would do. I'm sorry, but he is technically inside her uterus at this point.
Oh my god.
She is pregnant, or she will be pregnant in the next 36 hours. That's how biology works. Okay, I'm sorry.
Just a little bit left behind.
I'm so sorry, chat. I'm not sorry. That would do. She smiled, a slow smile. For now, it would. Stretching languorously beneath the sheets, she remembered her abandon the night before, and most of the day as well. She could hardly believe it had been her, and thought that she should be blushing like the sun. But she wanted to be abandoned with Rand, and she did not think she would ever blush again, not for anything connected to him. Best of all, he had left her a present. On the pillow beside her when she woke lay a golden lily in full bloom, the dew fresh on the lush petals. Where he could have gotten such a thing in the middle of winter she could not begin to imagine. But she wove a keeping around it, and set it on a side table where she could see it every morning when she woke. The weave was Mogedian's teaching, but it would hold the blossom fresh forever, the dewdrops never evaporating, a constant reminder of the man who had given her his heart. Her morning was taken up with the news that Olivia had vanished during the night, a serious matter that put the kin in a tumult. It was not until Zaida appeared in a taking because Nynaeve had not come for a lesson with the Atha on Mier that Elaine learned that Nynaeve and Lan were both gone from the palace too, and no one knew when or how. Not until much later did she learn that the collection of Angreal and Turangreal they had carried out of Ebudar was missing the most powerful of the 3 Angreal, and several other items besides. Some of those, she was sure, were intended for a woman who expected to be attacked at any moment with the one power, which made the hastily scribbled note Nynaeve had left hidden among the remainder all the more disturbing.
All right, so definitely a couple of things to talk about there. Obviously, we mentioned that the lily is her house sigil.
Yes.
And how it's related to the feathers that he wanted to make into a flower before.
Yes. Also, we got to bring in a little bit of Dan Brown conspiracy theory. I mean, fleur-de-lis, it's something to do with Mary Magdalene. There's a Jesus thing here. Jesus something magic Illuminati. Conspiracy proven.
The fleur-de-lis connection with Camelin and England is, that's just on the nose.
Yeah, no, for sure. The fleur-de-lis iconography throughout the royal houses of mythic Europe it's a thing. Next item.
The weave was Mogedian's teaching, but it would hold the blossom fresh forever. I mean, on one level, that is a little creepy, right? It's sort of a preservative weave that's...
Magic formaldehyde.
Yeah.
Put it in a jar of magic ether. It's fine.
It's like I learned to use formaldehyde from, Dr. Frankenstein, right? Like... He did horrible things with it, but it turns out it's useful for preserving roses, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not a horrible thing to do with it. And there's an interesting commentary on how a lot of their knowledge did come from Mogedian and learning from Forsaken, and that's what gave them a leg up in a lot of cases. And they use it despite the source, and so does Rand.
Yeah, seriously, going against the natural order of things, not even the dew can evaporate.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think he got it from? Do you think he tore up a pillow and grabbed a handful of feathers? Or...
I think at this point he doesn't need feathers anymore. I think he can just...
I really want to imagine him just finding a spare pillow and grabbing a handle.
just reaching into it, ripping it open, reaching in, and using magic.
Exactly, no one will ever notice. It's fine.
Fluffing it back up and putting it back down and be like, yeah, it's fine. And there's an obvious dent in the pillow.
Yeah. But no, you're probably right. He probably doesn't need anything but, the power of his mind or whatever. Maybe he took an old sock and was just like, this doesn't have a match anyway. It's fine. That's a new doggo.
This is our neighbor's puppy. We've been house sitting for about a month.
Aww.
So they went on an extended trip, and he is a huge snuggle bug, and he and Timber have been getting along great and wrestling, and they've always had a chance to play together because they're neighbors. So the dog's like, Dorian. This is Dorian.
Dorian.
As in Dorian Gray.
Aww.
So he's got a portrait hanging up somewhere that's aging and old.
That's
but
amazing.
He's a sweetie. And he is a cuddle bug. He loves being held. He loves being petted. He does this thing where if you squeeze him really hard, he groans in pleasure.
Aww. And
he's just like, yeah.
For our audio-only audience, this is a tannish, short-haired dog with bat ears and a vaguely chihuahua-like face that looks a bit smaller than Timber.
Yeah, he's probably about half Timber size.
Yeah, but what kind of breed is he?
He's got
some kind of mutt.
Yeah. But... I think Boston Terrier combined with Chihuahua basically is going to get you there.
Yeah,
so
he's got the Chihuahua
maybe a little
eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's got these like big bat ears but he's got like more of a pug type face.
He's got a really bat-like face overall. His little teeth. Look at his little teeth.
Oh yeah.
His little lower teeth are sticking out. Oh my god, he looks so happy and comfortable.
Oh yeah, no, he'll settle into your lap and just lean into you until you're done petting him. He's a touch me 100% of the time baby.
What a good boy.
Yeah. Timber, as in his old age, has definitely gotten to the point where he's like, okay, pet me. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to go lay down over there. Leave me alone. Right? Like, he likes snuggles, too, at night, and he still cuddles at night, but he doesn't need the constant touch that this one does.
And they're friends regularly, so house sitting isn't like a super stressor on the Timber situation.
And literally, we're like across the hallway from each other, so if we both open our doors, the apartments are like 3 feet apart from each other, so the dogs just run in between the two households. Because whenever we're like coming home from work, sometimes the doors will just stay open for like an hour or so the dogs can like... Because, like, we all know it's good for dogs to have friends, and it wears them out a little bit, and they get to play and stuff like that.
Socialize with one of their own.
Yeah, and it's always nice to play with somebody else's dog, too.
Oh, so. Yeah, for sure. No, that's lovely.
So he's a sweetie. Well, let's talk about the last paragraph of this chapter, because I think there's I'm going to say foreshadowing, but basically this is the gathering of the party that is going to cleanse the source and protect Rand while he's doing it.
Yes.
Rand and Nynaeve while they are doing it.
Yeah, Rand is gathering the forces he needs to execute this mission, and this was a big sweep. He got Nynaeve and a bunch of toys and a bunch of channelers, a bunch of allies he didn't even necessarily know that he was going to pick up, right? He was just here for a couple of items. He just wanted Nynaeve, basically, and he came away with a small army.
Because I'm pretty sure Codswain goes with them at this point.
I don't know quite how she gets brought into the loop or when she forces her way into the party, but yeah, it does. It has to be at the same point in time.
It has to be, yeah. Because she's with them
immediately next time we catch up with the party.
Yeah, the next time we see them, right? They're heading to the farmatting, and she's like with them, and she stays outside, and they go in and get him when things go wrong, right? It's a whole thing. So she's part of the party. The Angreal, the most powerful Angreal, that get a bunch of those that get used. Nynaeve gets the Paralis net. Mm-hmm. That's the Terangreal she's talking about. Yeah,
I mean, we're talking like we've got one or two wells, a couple of birds, the Paralis net, the bracelet with rings. There's a couple. They're mostly defensive, I think. I think like one of them's like a physical body shield. Yeah, it's all very combat-tastic for sure.
Right. Although I'm not sure they've gotten Kalendor picked up yet. I'm curious. I don't know when that.
Yeah, Rand has Kalendor.
He has Kalendor.
Well, I mean, he's had it since the Shan campaign when.
That's right.
What's his face pulled it out and followed after and all that. We don't see Rand having it here, but I'm guessing that he just left it with his and Min's baggage when they went in to get Nynaeve or something.
They he hid it somewhere so he can come back for it.
Yeah, exactly. He does that multiple times, that he will bury his stuff and then go in and get it and come out. So he definitely has it at this point.
And then you got that hastily scribbled note from Nynaeve. What do you think that says?
Oh, I've always tried to wonder. I don't know. Probably something like, we've gone with Rand to do some things that need doing. Don't worry if...
Yeah, the don't worry part,
there's a don't worry line in there that is incredibly vague, for sure.
Yeah, don't worry, nothing will go wrong, I promise.
Yeah, if you hear a large bang, don't investigate. It's fine.
It's fine.
Don't worry if we don't come home. Happening. Don't stay up. Yeah. It's like, she's going to worry so hard.
And then it's like... No, we're fine. We're going out for a walk. Picks up machete. Nothing's going wrong. No problems. Yeah. Put on bulletproof vest.
Yes.
It's like, wait, no, you can't reassure me that you're not going into any danger when you took that, right?
Yeah.
A tank is not for a stroll along the garden. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Nynaeve takes all the good stuff out of the armory and says, I'm going to be fine. Don't worry about it. I'm definitely doing nothing dangerous.
Right.
I'll be fine. I don't know if you're gonna be fine, Nynaeve.
Don't fuck up with the throne while I'm gone. Right.
Oh my god, Jedi Pants wrote in chat. Gone to cleanse source. Don't forget to pick up milk. Be home shortly.
Yeah,
it's definitely that kind of vibe. Just like, that's too casual to not be disconcerting.
Very disconcerting.
Ah, well, there we go. A Lily in Winter.
Yeah.
And we will
pick that Lily.
Next be... Yes, that Lily got plucked. And next time you hear us, we will be at SpoilerCon.
SpoilerCon Live. And
wonderful news.
We got... Yeah, this will be a fun chapter because it's very Forsaken heavy.
Oh, yeah. And that's part of why we had to do this recording, was because we picked that one for SpoilerCon. And we didn't want to get out of order. Like, fuck, got to record today anyway. But yeah, that will be in just, 4 days or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
So soon.
And then if we record the Tuesday after, that gets us our buffer back.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to be releasing any new stuff until after SpoilerCon. But yeah, stay tuned to the feed for more of the deep dives. Those will be continuing to come out. And once you hear this episode, we will be back onto a weekly schedule with a week or two of buffer. So that way there shouldn't be any gaps for the foreseeable future.
So yeah, talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us again for this wonderful chapter.
Support us on Patreon! Welcome back. It's been a little bit.
So, yeah, we took both a break, and this is the week before SpoilerCon. Literally, SpoilerCon 2022 is 3 days away at this point for us.
Why are we recording right now?
Because we said we would, because we planned poorly.
Past me is a douchebag.
Well, I don't think we want to take 3 weeks off, and with SpoilerCon coming up, we might have to take a week off after that, just depending on how we feel. So it felt like a rough time to take off 5 whole weeks, and also we're workaholics, so that's fine. It's fine.
Well, I hope that all of you out there have been enjoying the deep dive episode podcasts that have been coming out in the interim. As we're recording this, or as you're hearing this, you should have started to get to hear the unreleased, never before released content. So I hope you're enjoying that. And thank you for being forgiving of us taking a break, because I needed it.
I think we all do sometimes, and it certainly helped me. I am starting to settle back into my job, so I'm feeling much more comfortable with energy expenditure outside of work, which is nice. Now that I just hit 5 months, so.
Wow. Time flies when you're grinding through a learning curve.
Yeah, no kidding. Jeez. Whew, it is a steep one, and I'm still climbing it, there's no doubt, but at least I've got a set of tasks I can do that let me be somewhat independent, so I don't have to socialize all day, because that was taking a lot of my social ability.
I have had an incredibly social September, and we're topping it off with SpoilerCon, so I'm going to talk to nobody for the entire month of October. I have seen so much family. I hosted my first party in my house. I will be an absolute hermit for October.
Really getting ready for that Halloween spirit.
Yeah. And actually, just the other day, I got talked into buying tickets to a show in Eugene on October 14th, and I know I'm going to a Halloween party. So I guess I will be talking to people on 2 occasions in October. But, oh man, September has been a whirlwind of people.
And it's just gonna keep spinning. You're heading towards the eye.
Oh boy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to SpoilerCon, but if I look a little deer in the headlights more than usual, that's why.
Yeah, no, I've just been cooking a bunch. That's been my real sort of down time activity. But yeah, that and getting ready for SpoilerCon. I've got ribbons here, or what are they called?
Lanyards.
Lanyards. Thank you. But yeah, so those of you who are live can see them.
They're pretty cool. They're orange. They say SpoilerCon 2022 in a nice, chunky, almost Comic Sans kind of font, but not really. It's got a pretty cool little, leather rivet thingy bobber at the end. It's pretty neat. I have the swag bags that you're all going to get. They're nice cotton, like little totes that have a big old SpoilerCon 2022 logo on them to hold your con wares, because I got that idea from WatCon. I really liked it at WatCon, so I took it on my own for SpoilerCon, and those are neat. I have a couple of silent auction items here with me. So yeah, it's all coming together.
Yep.
Last minute, but it is coming together.
Isn't that our MO though?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, we should probably offer formal podcast congratulations to Talir and Ogier Tendencies.
Yes.
For going through the formal motions of tying the knot for all to see.
Congratulations on your wedding.
Yes, we were very, very happy to. I was happy to see those pictures, and we wish you all the best
Definitely.
in your Wheel of Time spoilers inspired journey.
And I look forward to giving you a hug at SpoilerCon in person, because I think you're going to be there. So yeah, I can't wait to say it. Actually, what's funny is I'll have been able to say this to you in person before this will come out.
That's true. That's true. We will definitely have hugged them and told them congratulations in person long before this episode airs.
So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah. And other personal news, I am now officially 30, 31, and 32. I have had my COVID delayed birthday party and raged out multiple birthdays, and I am now formally okay with being in my 30s, and it's all good. So that was important, because getting my birthday canceled by the pandemic sucked.
Yeah.
Like, to get a decadal turnover canceled by the pandemic was just... But I had a great party, broke in my house for entertaining, and just had an absolutely fabulous time. So...
Yeah, my 40 was during one of the resurgences, so I know how that feels. I keep going like, God, I am in my 40s. I'm almost 41. Good God. How did that happen?
I was hanging out just the other weekend with some family, and everyone there was dark-haired except for me, and I'm not the youngest person there, and I was looking at all the gray.
Yeah.
And everybody's hair being like, I have roughly that much gray in my hair, but I can't tell because silver and gold are too close together.
Right.
But like, it just kind of occurred to me that I have gray hair. It's not that I will one day suddenly have gray hair out of nowhere. It's that I'm accumulating it starting sometime in the past, to judge by the people that I'm hanging out with.
Nynaeve's dream come true. When am I going to get my gray hairs?
Well, if I could expect to live to 600, I might be a little more enthused.
And if you could expect to be entirely 100% healthy that entire time, where the only sign of age is your gray hair. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?